A political scientist by training, Dr. Behera has worked with the Ministry of Defense and Ministry of Home Affairs before joining National Institute of Advanced Studies. His research interests are in understanding political violence, insurgency, terrorism, militancy, ethnic conflict, development and conflict, social impacts of development projects, and political processes in South Asia and India. He has been consulted on the Maoist conflict by several state governments in India. His latest books are Negotiating Development at the Margins, Natural Resources, Conflicts and People's Movement in Odisha, and Maoist Insurgency, State and People, Overlooked Issues and Unaddressed Grievances. I would like to request our faculty, Ms. Shifali ma'am, to kindly hand over the bouquet to our guest. Thank you, ma'am. I now request Dr. Anshuman to kindly deliver his address on empirical research, collection and analysis of data.
Good afternoon. Okay. I think no, that's okay. Yeah, I think we all are tired. Okay. Good dose of teachings have been going into our heads since morning. Okay. It is also very unfair from the organizer side to put me after the lunch. and they serve you good lunch. Right. It's a very, very difficult task to do justice. And there is another also important thing, that the advantage of actually speaking last is that most of the things have been spoken. Right. That is also your disadvantage. The organizers will think that, okay, I repeated what has been said. So in order to avoid that, what I did, I got a couple of kind of lecture plans. So I was told that this will be more of the students and research scholars will be attending this thing. But I see my faculty colleagues are also here. So what we'll do is, we'll not revisit what has been told since morning. We'll make it a little more interactive. Okay, interactive, but more from my side and less coming from your side. Okay. And then try to understand what is this scientific empiricism, okay, as they call it, and how this is conducted, right? And a lot of myth, a lot of kind of scaremongering of research. People try to frighten you. Okay, pictures that Priyanka was showing, that you are splitting your hair, you are splitting the hair. Okay, this is how the public speakers sometimes they try to make their presence felt. Okay, so to see that, okay, they are doing a great service, saying that, okay, you are confused and all that. If you are confused, don't do research, right? This is an unnecessary thing. This is being told to the people, right? And this is also an important thing that we need to understand. The hierarchy has been inbuilt in our mind, okay, starting from our social process to the academic one. That certain people earlier, when the height of Brahminism, height of kind of caste hierarchy, it was called that elites and certain people cannot do theory, certain people are not capable of doing knowledge, producing knowledge, or they are not even worth of consuming knowledge, right? Similarly, as we grow, the caste hierarchy has graduated to some academic kind of hierarchies. That is where this scaremongering also been an important part of this academic hierarchy, that tells that certain people cannot think, certain people cannot do research, certain people cannot write well, your English language is not good. Okay, that is where you see the heavy terminologies that come to actually play. Scientific empiricism, right? It comes across like something. How many of you seen this 3 Idiot movie? Yes? You remember that character, Chatur Ramalingam? Okay, and the definition of machine. Okay, yeah? So that kind of thing. Will what we do is the Pungchuk Bengaluru way of understanding this, thing, right? So before I start, I do not have a PowerPoint presentation because I think a contact with the people is more important than getting into the PowerPoint. Okay, you should be looking at me, I should be looking at you. Okay, there has to be some conversation, and we'll try to understand the best. Okay, I am a social scientist. So there will be some biases towards social science because I cannot pretend to know anything about law. Okay, and you will be forgiving me for that. Okay, I have no idea about law to the extent I know that law is there and there is something very nasty in the heart of law. Okay, so yeah, those biases I'll try my best to accommodate them around your needs, your expectations, right? Before we get into understanding, before we get into understanding scientific empiricism or the empirical method, two important questions. What is research supposed to do? We have done our LLB, our LLM, now we do a PhD, yeah? Now we get a job. Done and dusted, right? What is the role of a research? Okay. And the second question, whether or not it makes any difference, if at all it makes any difference to whom? These are some basic questions. Okay, I have been teaching for fairly some good number of years, and I invariably start with these two questions. Okay, there is one way of understanding research is that this is a ritualistic degree earning process, exercise, right? We do, literature, you do this thing, that thing, and then we have to submit this thing, get a doctorate degree, and UGC says, like, okay, you are not a doctorate degree holder, you will not get an assistant professor job, or you have a doctorate degree, your promotion will be there, whatever. Okay, and that is one way of doing it. The most ideal way of doing it is that we contribute, if not to the society, but to the domain of knowledge, right? And the society thing becomes overused. Right. So the possible answer that comes, that research, it's not searching, research. Okay, why we call it research will come very, very, very closely to that. Okay. One is like, it necessarily makes some kind of difference to the society. Okay. But then I'll take a pause and say that a good research, research that are not pursued for getting a degree, but the research that are pursued to contribute to the domain of knowledge. Yeah? They certainly do make some differences to our lives or to the things that we do on a daily basis. Yeah? So everything that we use, okay, starting from our mobile phone, okay, to the dress that we wear, they are necessarily, okay, are products of some good research. Yeah. So most of the time, what happens that we become the consumer of that research, not the producer of that. Yeah. Somebody has actually done. Okay, I can cite a good example. Say most of the time the scientists' name are not actually known. A good friend of mine who is in IISER Kolkata, Professor Mala Reddy, his group has come up with a thing that now we all think iPhone you are carrying, it drops, the screen breaks, okay, you are upset. Okay, now they are coming up with a screen that if it breaks it automatically on its own, it actually recovers. What a wonderful thing. Okay, but that will take time. Now the government of India is actually trying to commercialize it. Okay, it will take time to come. But then see, this is a part of the research, right? So then, doing the entire business of research creates two types of people. One who produces and one who consumes. Okay, and that is where the purpose of research actually brings two important kind of components in our thing. You remember people who are actually, we often sort of, do not give so much of importance to the teaching, unfortunately, in this country. Okay, the teachers are not well treated. Okay, starting from, with teachers means we think only the professors, right? Starting from your primary school teacher, who are very, least paid, okay, and then, the most number of work they do. Okay, fondly remember your teachers, starting from doing the BPL card collection to the teaching in the classroom, okay, and making your foundation strong. Okay, we are all products of all those kind of thankless jobs that our primary school teachers have actually put. Okay, And they are the ones who are the consumer of this thing. They do not necessarily produce the research. But then we have also the thing that the group who actually produce it. Then the scientific empiricism comes as an important method or an important way of producing knowledge, producing research, right? And in the process of producing research, what we do, we acquire new knowledge. Okay, we acquire new knowledge. What Priyanka was mentioning, the descriptive kind of research. Okay, earlier if you remember that somebody has compiled the poems of Kannada literature, say for example, okay, that is where it is absolutely descriptive, right? They have got like on Ramayana, say for example, if I can remember, one of the greatest historian this land has produced, S. Setter. How many of you know him? Okay, S. Setter, he's no more, he passed away a couple of years back. Okay, where he brought out a book talking about the multiple versions of Ramayana. Okay, that's it. Like what do you say? Acquiring new knowledge. It actually. Then it comes the evaluating that particular knowledge. Yeah, whether that knowledge is right, to what extent it is applicable. The previous speaker was saying action research, policy research, and all those kind of things. To what extent it is actually applicable to the present societal kind of context. That is where we start evaluating kind of that particular thing. When the journey is between practitioner, the consumer of research, to the researcher, the producer of that knowledge, scientific empiricism becomes, or it comes as very handy. Okay, it's not that the other methods, other methodologies, I'll tell you what is the difference. Most of the time we are confused. What is a method and what is a methodology? Method is a tool, a process through which we acquire data. Okay, and the data is also again confused in your mind, right? Data has to be statistical in nature. No, that's a myth. Okay, that's a myth, right? Anything can be a data that has been actually mined, that has been acquired from, and the field also we say. Okay, we'll have to get into the field. Okay, so for example, Priyanka was here and she was mentioning certain things. How many of you know that the National Family and Household Survey, NFHS, that brings out the survey reports on different aspects of India? Yeah, NFHS, and it's a very credible source of information. Yeah, tomorrow if I want to pursue a PhD, okay, and I want to know the spending pattern of the households of Bellary district in Karnataka or a particular taluk of Karnataka, and primarily I will be dependent on the NFHS data. What is the need of going to the field? I'm not rejecting going to the field. I'm not rejecting, but don't get obsessed. Don't ever think that the empirical kind of research is only done when you hit the field. That's a myth that has been created. There is a myth that has been a colonial legacy to it. Yeah? They come to the field, the people from the Western countries. Why don't you sit there? Oh, okay, please sit. Okay. Yeah. So they come to our country, they come to the African countries, so-called third world countries, and they say that, okay, and they, in order to establish their legitimacy, they said, we have gone to the field. Okay. And since we have gone to the field, we have the legitimacy to claim that we understand that field. That is about this Vivek actually raised a question. If you do not know Tamil, if you do not know Kannada, the language, how can you say that couple of months visit to Bellary or any other Kuvempu or whatever district, you say you understand the societal values, the societal interactions, the societal issues of Karnataka or Tamil Nadu? To that matter, yeah. So from I'm not rejecting. Don't misjudge me or don't mistake me. Okay, but I'm saying there is always a possibility that you can have your data, your information collected by someone else. NFHS is something that you have not collected. That is done by the government agencies out there. And wonderful kind of observations can be made, and people have done this. Researchers, you come to my institute, NIAS, National Institute of Advanced Studies, there is a group called Human Development and Inequalities Group. You'll see they conduct field surveys, they go to the field, but at the same time, they also try to observe things from the NHS data, from the census data, okay, and they also come up with a lot of good observations. Does that mean that you are not a good enough researcher? Okay, we need to counter these myths, okay, in the process of understanding today. But before I get into scientific empiricism, very quickly, let me take you through how research has been done so far. Okay, what are the various methods? Okay, the research has been done so far. Okay, one of the oldest method of doing research was, a formal way of doing it. What was the formal way? How many of you know induction and deduction? Anyone? Very good. Okay, what is deduction? What is deduction? Okay, drawing lower order proposition from the higher order one, right? Okay, there is already somebody has said something, somebody has made a kind of statement that the old age people, okay, are more prone to kind of saving than the younger ones. So, for example, okay, you can contest me. It is not like cannot be contested. Or this will have a gender kind of note to it, but mothers are more tolerant than the fathers. Okay, which is true in a way because my father has beaten me the most. Okay, so that is where we draw X is a mother, she is tolerant. That is deduction, right? Then you have induction, going from particular, observing the particular things to the general kind of thing. That is the formal way of doing the thing. And why it is formal? Because traditionally people actually followed this. Then there came a time when there was the time of dominance, assertion of ideologies, the assertion of values. Okay, and then there's a varying degree, the values came. What was that? The ideology, or through the eyes of ideology, you do research. Dalit studies, say for example, feminism, black sociology, black subalternity, then regionalism, Uttar Karnataka, Dakshin Karnataka, in Odisha, the land I come from, Western Odisha, Coastal Odisha. Okay, so the values, the ideologies actually guided people. And this is what Marx was mentioned by our dean sir in the morning. Okay, a lot of people started writing. Okay, a topic, say for example, women exploitation in the coastal Karnataka, say for example, a Marxist perspective. Okay, you must have come across such kind of titles, right? That is where the prominence of a particular ideological framework, a particular regionalism kind of thing, a particular societal values that we believe, that is where the studies became very, very normative. Normative, anyone? What is normative? That it became prescriptive. What ought to be, kya hona chahiye, what should be the thing. Okay, more of like, looking towards a particular objective. Very quickly, then came something very, very, what you say, objective way of doing research. What is the objective? Like the research is all about making sense of things. Making sense of things. How do you make sense of things? Okay, what Priyanka was mentioning, I am departing from her. Okay, not necessarily saying only why. Okay, but different aspects of finding explanations to different aspects of a particular subject. How do you do it? First thing is you locate your research topic in the larger field. Say for example, if you are working on say for example sedition, law students, right? Okay, that is one area I work as an activist, so I can give you an example, sedition. Yeah. Now the Supreme Court has actually made a point that there cannot be any more sedition cases unless until you revisit the clauses of sedition, right? But remember, okay, you say for example you are doing a study on sedition charges on the subalterns. Subalterns means people who have little or no power. Yeah, they are called subaltern. Okay, very, very vague understanding of it. Okay, not the concrete one. Yeah. So that is where I gave a kind of hypothesis that the sedition or the sedition cases against the subalterns are much more than the sedition cases against the so-called elites. Yeah, you had a case against Sachin Pilot. How many of you remember? Okay, Sachin Pilot. And what was the sedition? Sedition means you are against the state. Rajadroha. If you translate it into Kannada. Okay, Rajadroha. You are going against the establishment, right? So what was the Rajadroha Sachin Pilot committed? Okay, that he was speaking against the chief minister. Yeah. Similarly, we had Rajadroha. Okay, very, very important Rajadrohas you will come across, laughable ones though. Okay, where the tribal women had gone to sort of collect firewoods. Okay, in Odisha. Okay, and the new fruit they found, the cashew nuts. Okay, the government had come up with cashew board there, and that was very strange to them. The tribal women had never seen. Okay, and with a lot of curiosity, they plucked a couple of them, and that was the sedition charge against them. Yeah. So, and when we see this thing, and what was the other sedition charge? Some 3,000 of them were actually, 30,000 of them in Kudamkulam. When the entire village came and said that we cannot allow a nuclear power point in Tamil Nadu, okay, protecting your rights, okay, how contradictory kind of thing. So that is where, coming to this thing, making sense of things. Where do you locate your theme that you are going to research in the larger, thematic on a scene kind of nothing. Okay, in the larger perspectives of sedition, where do you put the sedition charges of the subaltern? Yeah, and then doing what are its components? What are its components? Okay, how do these components interact with each other? Okay, and then the historicity of that particular event. Okay, history is not only about the dates and events kind of a thing, right? So that is where, this very quickly. But then when we actually go through this kind of thing, this boy was running to the first floor, okay, when I had gone to use the restroom, a very funny thing actually came to my mind. Okay, another ideal way of doing research is to, to make ourselves free from some sort of kind of, domination. Research is freedom-seeking exercise. What is that? Okay, and especially empirical research is all about seeking freedom. Freedom from the already dominated kind of researches. Some big professor, renowned professor, somewhere wrote something that becomes Veda for us. We do not have the courage, even if we find that that is wrong or inadequate, if not wrong. Yeah? Because that's my guru. That person is sitting as a vice chancellor somewhere else. That person is UGC chairman. If I write a contrarian approach, if not completely rejecting it, I will not get a job. That fear is there in our mind. As students also, yeah. In that process, what we do, even our findings are sophisticated forms of literature review. Okay, go back to our writings. Because we are somehow, scared. We are somehow caught in that fear that if I write a contrarian approach, if I write something new, something different, okay, I might not be accepted. Remember, knowledge is always temporary, nothing is permanent. If it was permanent, you and me will not be sitting in this room and discussing research methodology. It's ever evolving kind of nothing, ever evolving. What Plato and Aristotle wrote, people did write all those kind of things. My initial days in PhD, I went to my supervisor, Professor Mozam Ali. Okay, I fondly remember, he's not no more with me. I went to him and said that he told me, you read these 40 books and then come to me. Okay, before writing the research proposal. Not well equipped with reading. Okay, we should have a session someday, that what my teachers have taught me, how not to read a book during research. Yeah, during your PhD. Okay, that is very, very important. How not to select some things, because we tend to go by the title of the book. for the literature review, right? We look for this thing, we put in the Google, right? These are the things. We do not go by the theme of the books. We do not go by the theme of the text. Whether it is kind of, negating my thing, even if it is a negation, it is a contribution to my topic. To what extent this particular text is departing on what hypothesis I am actually making. Do we have the courage to do that? Okay. So coming back to this thing, I told him sir, whatever I was thinking, after reading some 20 of these books, I found that this has already been discussed. What should I do more? And the answer that came, that Gavaskar actually made, and those days Sunil Gavaskar was the best batsman or whatever. My father's generation will actually, cherish him as the greatest batsman ever. That doesn't mean that Sachin Tendulkar didn't play. Yuvraj Singh didn't play. Okay, this cricket analogy, because we are not able to get out of that hangover that we lost the World Cup. Yeah? So, just because Plato and Aristotle actually wrote what they wrote, the seminal works they did, we should not be, or we must not be doing, if that is the approach, we should not be doing the research, we should become the consumer of that knowledge. It's already there, let's use it. Yeah.
So we've been asked to prepare a citation. Okay. In order to do that, we are going through 50 or hundreds of publications that we have so far.
So I'm coming to that. I'll answer that on the literature review. I'll tell you how to, this myth about literature review is all about the way the mothers actually, create a fear in their minds of their kids. You go step out, the ghost will come, the ghost will come. Okay, that fear has come and it is a deep-rooted, it has taken deep roots in our mind. I'll tell you how to do it.
So we are going through hundreds of papers, sir.
Hundreds of papers, which is a must. But then I'll tell you how easily you can do it. How easily you can do it. Okay, yeah.
Thank you, sir.
So that is where I have my eyesight. I'm pre-diabetic now, so the problem is. Okay, but then as we are going through all these, that emerged a kind of tension. What is the tension? The two important tensions actually came. We started, especially in the cases of third world countries, those who are colonized. Yeah? One tension was the epistemological tension. What should be the source of our knowledge? Huh? See the excitement in our face when we say it's a foreign or third book. Yeah? Foreign or third book, right? Anybody that, and then we go by who has published it. It is Satya Sai publication, kind of, MG Road, we don't give it any importance. Yeah? Or Majestic. If it is OUP London, then immediately buy it, the library will also bring, okay, we keep it. And this also reflects something very important. What is that important? Important that we are very confused, rather driven by certain epistemology, and we are discounting a lot of epistemology that is homegrown. The Kubhempus, the Joshis, the Reddys actually wrote about our socio-economic interactions thousands of years. Our society, I'm not creating a kind of, this kind of scene where I'll be termed as a nationalist or a kind of, this thing. But to say that forget about our own country, the Africans, they existed much before the colonial powers actually came there, right? They had a social life, they had matrimonial relationship, they produced kids, yeah? They did understand the society, right? How did they understand the society? Can we draw the insights from there? Can that be the source of knowledge? At least to juxtapose them with the so-called English Western kind of knowledge. Why we are scared saying that, okay, if I borrow from some Kubhempu, I will be termed as a Kannadiga, nationalist or whatever. Why at all we are worried about this thing? So that is one particular kind of, tension that we have. I'm coming to you. I'll answer all your questions. Okay. And the second question is the historicity and the confusion between subjectivity and objectivity. What is the beginning point of the so-called enlightenment? So-called. Punaha Jagaran. Okay, what we say colloquially. Was the Renaissance, right? We thought the modernity began from there. Okay, let's settle for a moment that the modernity began from the Renaissance. How many of you know heard of the Renaissance? Okay, Renaissance means enlightenment, where they put an end to the medieval kind of supremacist kind of thing. Okay, now we are thinking that there will be modernity, individual liberty should be given importance, French Revolution, all these kind of things came. What it settled? It settled for something very important, that the social, the understanding of the social should be both human and human things. Human, where the individual and their interactions become the unit of analysis. That will study, okay, how we interact with each other, what are the important themes around which we actually interact with each other, the nature of it, the scope of it, how do we conflict, how do we cooperate, yeah? So that was the human thing. And it is also human thing. Human means how it ought to be human. There is a subjectivity there, right? So, but then we have taken it to extreme logical kind of things. Logical, in bracket, illogical things. What is this? That a group of people, what you say, the positivist school, okay, that came and they said that everything that is verifiable should be considered as knowledge. Yeah? Positivism, yeah? Empiricism. Yeah? And some people actually that talks about the numbers, the replicability, the verifiability, the measurability, all those kind of things. Okay, if you are not able to measure something, okay, you are not doing scientific research. So much of halla gulla about this science also. By 1950s also we started calling ourselves as social scientists. Earlier what was our brand, I do not know. Okay, so social scientists, everything became science, right? And the second, that the primacy or the super dominance of metaphysics. That anything that is objective, if there is no value, there is no ideology, there is no kind of normativity, it should not be considered as research. Right? And this confusion, okay, it actually has taken us, or it has kept us divided, absolutely divided. Some people do only the number games, yeah? They deal with, you see the commerce students, okay, with a calculator, okay, they are doing entire thing, number game, okay, and there are flow charts, pie charts, there is, okay, Microsoft Office, all those kind of thing, Excel sheets, okay, they are only filling the numbers, okay, and then you have the extreme philosophical kind of people only writing metaphysics. Yeah, and that is also arguably one of the things of the downfall of philosophy department. In the entire Bangalore city, you will not find many philosophy departments, right? And we are talking about why the road race has actually gone up. Okay, there is unethical kind of behavior during conducting the research and all that, the contradiction. Okay, and there is another important thing that we see, especially in the research, that we try to elevate the methodology to a theory level. The methodology that we use in conducting a particular research, we elevate, we take it up to a theory level. Okay, ideally what should be done? That a theory has to be used, or a methodology has to be used to actually produce a theory. And theory is an explanation. Yeah? How can a methodology? Okay, so for example, the tribal women in Koraput, an ethnographic study. Laughable kind of titles you come across. The supervisors are also happy. Okay, because we think ethnography, English jargon, it is like sounding very good. Okay, we are also happy. Okay, a quantitative analysis. How do you analyze if it is only number? You will have to put words, right? You will have to make a sense of things, how the young women of this country, okay, in this particular age group with this much of salary are actually contributing to the family income. You'll have to make sense of three important variables to say that young women are contributing to the family income, right? If you are working on the women's contribution to the family income. Okay? You have to measure, okay, what do you mean by income? And that is where somebody will raise a question like, our mothers do not actually contribute to family income or what? We make kind of, the activities that our mothers do, okay, we try to measure them in terms of money. Yeah? How much a maid servant actually takes when she is coming to do the intensive. Okay. And the care aspect, all of those kind of things. So the another extreme is about taking the methodology to a theoretical level. That also creates confusion in our mind, and that is probably, arguably in my opinion, is one of the major issues why most of our researchers are not making impacts. Okay, the impact thing we discussed in the last thing, right? The impact research, right? So coming to the role of scientific empiricism, okay, so does it provide any solution to these tensions? Okay, the answer will be mixed. Let's say 80% in favor of scientific empiricism. Okay, 20% is still a gray area. I do not have the answer. Okay. So you have something very important here, that why it provides 80% of the solution, or no, 80% is a very vague number I'm saying. Okay, you don't quarrel with me why it is 80%. Okay, one is that you experience things. It is not done through inference. Okay, it is done through observation with evidence are at the center of it. Huh? Evidence is mostly actually confused with data. Okay, we substitute it with data. Okay. Okay, but then evidence is, it can be anything. An interview can be an evidence, right? Okay, a video can be an evidence, a text can be an evidence, right? But then coming very quickly, I have another 20 minutes. Yeah? 20 minutes. Yeah? Okay, very quickly. Okay, there are 6 steps. If you go by the textbook of it, there are 6 steps you follow doing an empirical research. Okay, the first thing, coming to your thing, the discovery. Okay, what do you discover? You engage with the existing knowledge that we in a very diluted form, we call it as a literature review. Literature review is the most unfair, diluted form of saying that we are reading books. Yeah? So then, evidence. And how do you do literature review? Dean sir was saying something, Priyanka was saying something. Okay. I have been very fortunate for being taught by some of the greatest professors. My professors would say that don't read books, engage with the ideas. Yeah? So when it is text, okay, there was a very popular movement that came from the West. Not everything from the West can be contested, that something can be actually adopted. Death of an author. Death of an author. Author is dead, content is king. That was the slogan that came, especially if I'm not wrong, from the Frankfurt School. What was it? Don't go by the cover page of the book. Just say very young people also use it. Okay, and don't go by the author. Sometimes some of the best authors actually write nonsense in the book just because they have some acceptability. They have made some name. Yeah. So that is where, when you are actually looking for the dealing with the existing set of knowledge, look for the ideas. Before reading the book, read the review of the book. Is it possible for us? Yeah? Review of the book. Yeah? It is not necessarily important that you actually first make a list of the books that needs to be studied. First make the list of the books, spend some time in rejecting what are not needed for your research. Yeah? What are not needed for your research. Even if you are saying participatory democracy, yeah, and you have like 20 books on the same name, participatory democracy, if they are not dealing with the very essence, very rational, very theory, very explanation of participatory democracy, reject them. Don't read. Because you have so many people, because this is a time when we have democratized producing knowledge. Anybody who has a mobile phone device, okay, not satisfied with Modi or Rahul Gandhi, will write 200 words on the Facebook, that is also a text. Yeah? And a sophisticated version of that is somebody who has some money and knows that in Daryaganj in New Delhi there are publication houses. 40,000 rupees you give, 30,000 rupees you give, they publish and bind a book and give you. Amazon also does that. Right? That is where little bit of effort, reading at least the introduction of the book, the content of the book, the review of the book, how to reject it. Yeah? And sometimes we see that the book is not mentioning anything about the participatory democracy. But there are certain themes it is actually addressing which has very much link with the participatory democracy. So before doing that, how do? You also find out what are the dynamics, what are the aspects, what are the important themes around which you understand participatory democracy. If you are not clear about what exactly you mean by participatory democracy, how would you look for the literature? Yeah? That is what you do discover. Then a lot of the time, too much of engagement with literature review actually confuses your mind. And that actually dominates your thought process so much that you do not necessarily write anything new. That is one. You carry your literature review to the field also. Those people who go to the field. That you pose the questions around what you have perceived, what you have derived, what you have actually acquired from the literature review. Okay, what Marx understood by exploitation, you are putting the same question to them, on the same lines, on the same themes. We have not been able to sort of, find the indicators, the themes around which you will pose the question on exploitation. Yeah? So that is how you need to also make a full stop to your literature review when you are framing questions for collection of evidence. Do not carry literature review to the field. That meaning that do not take, or your kind of research should not be completely driven by literature review. As I was telling you a little before, that most of the time our conclusion also comes in form of a sophisticated literature review. Okay, we are still writing, she said this, he said that. There's another myth that we come across. What is that? That even my PhD student, I just finished yesterday all my classes for this year, okay, in the RN course of qualitative research methodology. End of the class, I asked my students, like, why do you do literature review? In order to find the gap. That is a ready-made answer that comes to you. Okay, that is the most reductive form of understanding literature review. You are not doing literature review to get the gaps. You are doing the literature review to draw the insights. Okay, change your vocabulary of your research. Okay, it's not the research gap. Okay, most of the time, some author or some researchers touched upon that kind of thing. But just a passing touch maybe. Okay, maybe his or her kind of that researcher's objective was something else. That is where you say that they have not, most of the very, very standardized kind of language we write, that they have not been able to address this thing. Okay, as if we are going to offer all the solutions. Okay, can you change the vocabulary a bit? Okay, that such particular aspect of the theme has not been adequately addressed. The reason could be this. Can you be little favorable to your kind of fellow researcher who has done the research? See the kind of, because we think criticizing is necessarily producing knowledge. Or rejecting. Most of the teachers, it comes to the teachers. Most of the teachers, you see, what is new in this? Okay, there is nothing new in this. There cannot be anything new all the time, man. Things will be different. Okay, I have sort of, engaged with political participation through a different point of view. It's not only by participating in the election. Say for example, if majority of the researchers before me have written that people who participate in the election actually participate in the politics. I am saying that no, there are 6 other kind of parameters, 6 more other kind of aspects through which political participation can be understood. Huh? That cannot be new. Okay, it can be different. Okay. At the same time, I am also accommodating the thing that they have said. So that is where try to understand the Thomas Hobbes. How many of you know Thomas Hobbes? When he wrote about man is necessarily nasty, brutish, solitary, and selfish. That's what he wrote, right? Now people are very, very unfairly criticizing when this man doesn't understand men. He's a product of his time, man. What was his time? When there was absolute anarchy in Europe. You'll have to understand the history in which he has written. Okay, that is where do not always think that criticizing literature review means some people think that it is need to be criticized. Unless you provide 2-3 criticisms, it is not adequate. Okay, they have not covered this. Okay, that is why my research will provide the gap. Okay, no. Write thematically. There is another important thing of a literature review. Do not write, or an alternate way of writing literature review is to engage with themes. Okay, that is where the page thing actually comes to the picture. 30 pages, 40 pages. Don't go by pages. The best of the dissertations have written in 50 pages, PhD dissertations, that too in philosophy department in India, which has got international Pune University. Go back and see cultural kind of dissertation, K.C. Rauta. 50 pages. And they say each sentence will produce an article, each sentence. That's the power of writing concise, very precise kind of thing. Don't go by the page number. Okay. Divide your reading thematically and see what are the areas where a group of researchers have converged. Okay, there is a consensus on certain point of political participation, women empowerment, self-help group, any topic you take. Okay, if there is a departure, what is the common point from where they are departing? On their participation, on their contestation. Okay, then club these people together. You do not have to write 30 pages. And you end up writing 30-40 pages when you write, he said this, he said that. Okay, in this book, okay, he said this. In that book, he said that. Are you dealing with the theme, with the idea, or with the person? The authors are dead when they wrote the book, right? The second thing is hypothesize. Hypothesize, what is hypothesize? What is hypothesis, anyone?
Tentative statement.
Tentative?
Statement.
Tentative statement. I would say tentative conclusion. Yeah? Huh?
What we are asserting.
Yes. Tentative conclusion, if I say. And how do you establish this tentative conclusion? Yeah? How do you? Now, before hypothesis testing. Okay, see the clue here. The clue is that a researcher is not a lay person. Yeah? Give some importance to yourself. That you know a lot to know. Okay, it's not that we are dumb, okay, and we are actually trying to understand something. A researcher is an advanced kind of a person who has understood something. That is where tentatively she is trying to establish a relationship between the variables or among the variables. And this relationship or kind of an interaction she is actually saying is logical. And from where this logical thing she is bringing because she is actually going through some existing knowledge system. Right? So hypothesizing becomes very, very important. Okay? Do not actually provide a hypothesis because in your research proposal has to be written, this is my hypothesis. Okay, because unless your guide sees that as a hypothesis in bold letter underlined, he will not pass it. Okay, we also write hypothesis, right? Okay, for the sake of it, that is ritualism, right? Reducing research to rituals. Okay, so then let's see what are the important variables. There will be non-variables. Yeah, there will be auxiliary variables. See, identify the main variables. Yeah, I don't have time to tell you how to do that. You'll have to get me one more time, pay me extra so that I can. Okay. So, but then identify the main variables, the important ones. Establish their connections, logical ones, not by your values, your emotions, but by the existing knowledge, right? Then look for the evidence. This looking for evidence, see, this is where the corruption actually starts in research. Yeah? And when we have actually done the literature review, now we have done the hypothesis, now we are looking for, because in the textbook it has said that look for evidence, right? So people mistake it that we will look for the evidence that will support the hypothesis. Yeah? We are scared of saying that, look, my hypothesis has been proved wrong. Trust me, the dissertations that have actually done that, okay, with a very serious kind of research practice, ethical way of doing it, very scientific way of doing it, okay, when they come back and say that my hypothesis has been proved wrong, the research has been celebrated. If your hypothesis is wrong, doesn't mean that you are not a good researcher. You are a fantastic researcher because you have the ability to come and you have followed a procedure, a kind of a research thing, and you are coming that the evidence is not supporting the tentative conclusion that you established. Right? It is not necessary, it's not a mathematics formula where in a bracket you write a hen's proof. Okay, it's research, man. Yeah? Right? The hypothesis becomes look for evidence. You are looking for evidence in terms of the themes, the ideas. You are not looking the evidence that will support your hypothesis. And the corrupt practice is that we decide our conclusion, that is hypothesis, and we think that is the conclusion. Then what is the difference between hypothesis and conclusion? Don't get into that corrupt practice. A hypothesis is a hypothesis, a conclusion is a conclusion. Conclusion flows from the evidence and the analysis of them. Right? And that is what empirical research talks about. Look for the evidence and how do you categorize this evidence? Thematize your entire hypothesis. What are the themes that actually, we call it coding. Thematize them. And see if there is a synchronization. If I borrow this word from the dance program, there is a synchronization. Are they talking to each other? Are they establishing a relationship? Okay, is that a logical kind of thing? Is that a logical leap? All these questions, because questionnaire making is the toughest thing to do. Toughest thing to do. Right? Very quickly, then the collection of data. You go to the field, the so-called field, right? And the field world is actually celebrated in research. I'm in field now, I cannot do anything. Okay. Basically what we do, 6 months we go to our houses, stay with our parents, have fun. Okay, then another 2 months we go, click few photos. Okay, I put it on the Facebook with a tribal lady. Okay, in so and so village. Okay, I was privileged. Okay, all those things. Okay, see how corrupt the research practice has been. Okay, so collection of data, there could be multiple methods through which you do it. One is going by the oral traditions. Okay, taking you out from the insular kind of a laboratory library setting to an active collector of data. So what happens, like, the NFHS data that I was telling you, that is where you are just an analysis. You are just analyzing the data. You are not producing data. But then when you go to the field, okay, whether you are doing an ethnography, you are doing taking the help of an oral tradition, okay, you are doing a survey method, okay, you are holding interviews, you are also producing data and analyzing them. The person who is producing data and analyzing them, they will be doing wonderful empirical research. Okay, because we are not only dealing with the number, you are also dealing with the circumstances around which that number has come. Around 32 villages I surveyed last year, okay, in Gujarat, 8,000 households, okay, and the questionnaire length was more than 300 questions. Okay, each household will take more than 50 55 minutes. Okay, a team of 25 people, 90 days, with a sophisticated kind of technological way we did it. Yeah, believe me, that was the greatest satisfaction I have ever. I'm a man from the field. I travel field almost every couple of months. I'm in the field. I go there. Okay, so that is where what you see. These are all we converted everything into numerical kind of method. But at the same time, there was a lot of qualitative observation. A lot of funny things. People conceal data. People are no longer people in the field or in the village. They are no longer the so-called villagers. Yeah, they understand what business you are into because there is NGOs who are traveling them. They are visiting them every month. They are also doing surveys. Yeah, people conceal data. People give data with that information that are not there in their house, just to show that we have a color TV. How do you ensure it? That is something. Okay, that is a different topic altogether. Okay, we can discuss those if you are interested. On lighter note, I said you have to pay me extra. Please forgive me for that. Okay, but on a voluntary basis, those if you are interested, my details are with Ramya Madam and Dean sir. You can collect. You can write to me. Okay, you can visit my institute. I'll be of your help. Okay, how to actually ensure. There's a lady. I'll give you an anecdote. There's a lady. She was washing utensils. Took almost like 45 minutes to agree to give me interview or the survey to be done. She was absolutely rejected. Okay, so I was trying to persuade her, Maji, de do, she agreed. And then it took 50 minutes. She was very irritated because 50 minutes of her time I had consumed, right? The village lady, she has to go and cook afternoon time. So after that, I was also, end of the day, however I try to be neutral, however I try to keep my biases away, I'm a person, right? And I also have irritation, I have my emotions and all that. I was not showing on my face. Okay, very quickly, okay. So then she asked me, "Iska kya karoge? What do you do with this?" Okay, I said the household assets that, if you do not have those household assets, the government will provide them. By that time, she had told me that she had mobile phone, she had TV, she had refrigerator, she had two pull-outs and everything. Then she said, "Beta, काम करो, वो TV freeze को काट दो." The meaning like, okay, you delete all those TV freeze kind of things. I said, why? No, this is my son's in-laws have given in dowry. He is living in the town, he will take it then. He'll take all of them, okay, there, because he is not staying with us. Okay, so technically we do not have. If the government gives, we will have a TV. So I said, okay, Maji, I'm living, okay, I'll delete them. Okay, that is it. Okay, the collection of data. Okay, that is where, you'll have to be very, very careful. Okay, what data you are getting. Are you getting the concealed ones, the overhyped ones? Okay, and how do you validate them? That becomes a very important thing. Okay, scrutinizing the data. That is where, how do you make your questionnaire? In your questionnaire, make provisions for some counter questions. Counter questions. Okay, the latest survey I did, okay, in a particular company. Okay, this is social impact assessment. Sir, I'll come to that. Okay. So there we went to their security department. We asked, like, this is a hazardous kind of factory. How many people are getting injured? And the man in charge said, earlier it used to be like 200 per year annually. Now it has reduced to 3 people annually. This year, 2023, till September, it was only 3%. Absolutely unbelievable, right? Why should I, when you have an oil extraction kind of company, to say that only 3 people have been injured in the last 10 months will be laughable. Okay. So we had a provision, then we went to the physiotherapy department of that particular thing. We asked how many patients actually visit here. They said daily 70. Yeah? So those are kind of things. Then you evaluate them, then you defend it, how do you write? But then how do you identify, sorry, your question?
So my question is, how will you identify or quantify the data when the people conceal the data? In they give the manipulated figures.
You are absolutely hopeless there. You, me,
Then
all
the
that.
purpose of your survey will not be served.
Not solved. So that is where the second question the second aspect I said, that you need to have some counter questions. Okay. Yeah? You will consider yourself little smarter than them. Okay. That they can consider at one point. They invariably come to actually open up. Okay. In certain other questions. So accordingly the question needs to be framed. People concealed their kind of information on the caste violence. But when it came to the electoral violence, they all opened up. When it came to the religious violence, they all opened up. Okay, because caste is something they are actually living in the neighborhood. Okay, they have fear that it might lead to something. But when it comes to the electoral kind of violence during the elections, they all opened up. So that is why we actually made the questions in such a way that the respondent, the research participant, have least memory of what she actually responded when it came to the caste thing. Yeah? How do you identify the empirical nature of the research? Okay. One is the availability of questions. That has to be direct questions. If there are no research questions, that means you are doing metaphysics. You are doing theism. Yeah? And the replicability of it. Okay, they need to be replicable. Madam? I mean, over time. Okay. So then, very quickly, okay, if this is how you identify the quantitative, what is the goal of this empirical research? The first one is to collect experience about reality. To collect experience about reality. Okay, the reality is not like what is real and all that. Don't get confused. Reality is different aspects of our lives, our interactions, our society, and all that. That's the reality. When it is all about the experience of reality, we actually engage qualitative research. A lot of binary has been created by qualitative and quantitative research, right? What they say, theoretical Brahmi, empirical Sudra. People who write jargons are kind of top grade academics. Epistemology, ontology, all those kind of things that write abstract, metaphysics, and those words you see that a very big scholar, right? The people who write about the leaves and all that thing, they are sutras. Okay, no, that is not okay. Okay, but that is absolutely unnecessary, right? Then to taste the experience of reality. One is to get the experience of reality, then to taste it. Testing is the job of the quantitative research. Testing is the job of the quantitative research. Okay. Similarly, the qualitative research involves things like when you go for the data collection, information collection, go to the field, you engage with interviews. Open-ended questions. Open-ended questions. Okay, now the data price is raised. Okay, it has gone up. Earlier 1 GB data was something, now it has gone up. Okay, so for example, if I ask, I want to understand how people are engaging or how people are actually managing with the price rise in Bangalore. All of a sudden, Bangalore, the vegetable prices also gone up. Sometimes the tomato becomes 100 rupees. Okay, if you think that, okay, you want to do a research on that. Okay, mutton has become 750 rupees. Okay, those kind of things. Okay, then you see how people are managing with the price rise in Bangalore. Okay, so you go with a question. So, for example, I go to this gentleman and I ask him, how do you manage with the price rise? Interview. It's an open-ended question. He can go for 40 minutes saying that, okay, I have some savings. I don't eat non-veg, I don't use onion and garlic. Okay, all those kind of things he says. Okay, that is where I draw a conclusion. Okay, his age group, people older than him, people younger than him. Then I come to a conclusion that the older generation of Bangalore, because of their savings, they manage better, okay, with the price rise. Okay, those who are retired, they have their PF fund, okay, pension, whatever, they somehow manage. Okay, but then I want to test it. I need to make every theme of my question Okay, measurable. What do I mean by saving? Huh? I have to provide a number. I have to see the age group. Okay, 30 to 35, 30 to 45, all those kind of things. Okay, how often they eat non-veg, how often they go out for fine dining. Okay, how often they watch movie. Then I come to a conclusion that based on this measurable kind of evidence, that older people do not visit IMAX. They don't watch movie. That is 1,000 rupees each, every week they save. Okay, so that is where the quantitative is about making things kind of measurable, standardized. Okay, because when he is telling me in the interview process, our interview process will be completely different. Okay, but that is becomes the job of the researcher to find out kind of thing. Okay, very quickly I'll skip this. Okay, data collection, the primacy of data and everything. Okay, let's come to the form. Okay, data becomes very important in the quantitative research. Okay, but the form in which they are obtained differ in the qualitative and quantitative. In the qualitative research, they are like interviews or observations. You have certain questions in your mind, you go to the field, you observe the people, how they are actually, and they are called soft data. Soft data. Okay, you get the interview, we transcribe them. Okay, even if you have video, you try to make sense of it. Okay, they can be in the form of text, it can be images or videos, and it is absolutely open format and subject to interpretation. Okay, the interviews, that the text that you actually generate from the interviews, that can be interpreted by two different people differently, completely differently. Alright, but when it comes to quantitative, okay, you actually conduct the survey or experiment. Okay, that is becomes the numerical data or the hard data, Excel sheet. Okay, that is where what you see is occurrence, frequency, how many times it occurs, who does it, what is her caste, what is his age, all those kind of things. Okay, and the analysis predominantly done through a statistical kind of a method. Yeah, and it has a standardized kind of thing. And the process also varies a bit. The linear, non-linear kind of thing the previous speaker was saying. Okay, but in a qualitative kind of thing, it is circular. Cannot say that okay, from here it began, okay, here it ended. Okay, it is actually the workflows are less structured and can be designed flexibly. Okay, you have the liberty of a very flexible designing of the things. Okay, go to the field, held few interviews, came back, made sense of it, again came back, went back to the field, those kind of things. And in that process, the loops and the return to the previous step is possible here. You can go back to the previous step. Okay, but this is exactly the different in the quantitative thing. It's a linear research process. Okay, people who say that they are going to the field to collect the quantitative data, but they can manipulate their research design, either they are fooling you or they do not do research. Yeah? My friend was mentioning now there is a flexibility, you can actually manipulate your research designing. I would very strongly disagree with that. Okay, if you are doing quantitative one, a qualitative one is fine. Okay, but you are going for the survey, household kind of thing, and you say that you will come and tamper with your research design, with your method, forget it. Okay, either you are not doing research or you are trying to fool people. Yeah? So it's absolutely linear. Okay, very well structured process. If you ask the question, okay, the same question to me, the same question has to be asked to her. How often you visit a movie hall? If that question is not asked, that means it's not well structured. And this confusion also comes, people say that as a semi-structured questionnaire. What do you mean by semi-structured? That you frame questions there and there depending on the respondent's response. That means you are not very clear about what you are going to do. Okay, very structured ones you have to do, right? And the third, that you cannot return to the previous state. You cannot say that, okay, people are not responding to my question, so I'll change my questionnaire. That is, the entire research project is nothing but a farce. You have no idea. People not being responsive is also a finding of your research. Remember that. Don't get discouraged by that. If I asked whether you privilege your caste identity over your religious identity, people are silent. I come as a researcher, I find that people do not actually find an answer to their religious and this identity. That's my finding. Don't say that, okay, I'll change the question. The changing question means you are not being ethical, you are not being serious about your research. Right? Then the selection of research participants. How do you select your research? This is the sample size they are saying, right? Huh? Sample size. Okay, very quickly an anecdote. Okay, time? The speaker is ready? No, okay. So we had a wonderful dissertation written on Maoist insurgency in ISEC, Institute for Social and Economic Change, Bengaluru, one of the premier research institutes here. So I was in the doctoral committee, and the guy has actually, the researcher has done a wonderful job. He had interviewed only 70 people from Chhattisgarh. Okay, one of the Mao, violently affected kind of, Taluk. Okay, block they call it, not Taluk, block. Okay. So the experts had problems. They said only 70, only. Okay, only 70. But we had to defend, right? Okay, we had to defend. So we told them that the 70, look at the questions that we are posed, and look at the situation in which, the context in which the study was conducted. The previous studies in the same block have not been able to do 10 questionnaires, 10 kind of interviews. We have done 70. So don't go in the qualitative way of doing the selection of this thing is very few. You are getting into in-depth kind of a conversation interview with the research participants, respondents. Okay, a very dignified way of calling them respondents is research participants. They are also participating in the research, right? Research participants. Yeah, very few. But then there is a few individuals are studied. Goal is to look very closely at each individual subject. You are not even asking like a message. Do you have cows? Yes or no? Okay. How many buffaloes do you have? Yes or no? Do you have motorcycle? Yes or no? That is what the quantitative do. Okay, the census guys do. Okay. How often you have been beaten by your neighbor? We ask this question. They say, never, sir. Okay. But in a qualitative interview, you ask, what is your relationship? I'll give you an example. The quality and quantity when you mix it together. There is a town called Bhoga in Gujarat. Okay? And it's a written history of this town is like in 1,500 years. It's a coastal town. Okay, the bay like in Arabian Sea. It's a beautiful town. Okay, more than 4,000 to 5,000 people are living in that. And it is divided as like 60% Muslims, 40% Koli Hindus. Okay, Koli is the Machuas, fishermen. And it has a unique history that there has never been a communal violence. We asked the quantitative questions, how often you had violence on the religion basis. Everybody said, no sir, sab raji khushi rehte hain. The counter thing I was telling you, sir. Okay. So the counter question, okay, in the subsequent section we asked, how often you actually attend each other's social gatherings? Never. When was the last time you actually distributed food among each other? Never. How often your neighbor has come to your help when you didn't have money? Never. Yeah? So the absence of violence doesn't necessarily guarantee the absence of hostile feeling. The absence of violence doesn't necessarily reflect on, a peaceful kind of a relationship. Okay, these things also you need to actually keep in mind. when you are going through the quantitative ones. Okay, very quickly, the quantitative here, we actually go for the large samples. The goal is to make a generalized statement about the population.
But how come there was no violence?
There was no violence. There can be, the violence is the same. Okay, then you are actually forcing me to give here, you know. Okay, a definite violence in terms of the tangible ones.
They never encountered each other.
There was never any incident of kind of, violence in terms of physically hurting each other. But at the same time, we found that there was never an instance where both the communities actually engaged with any kind of social gathering. So, the least thing, the limited point that I'm making, that we cannot actually function with this binary, that this is quantitative, that is qualitative, those kind of things, right? There is a possibility that we can bring this together in the process of getting quantitative data, also observe your research participants. And see, and frame your questionnaire in such that you cannot be manipulated by your research participants. Right? Thank you very much for the opportunity, sir. Okay, sir.